Hi, everyone. Welcome to our latest edition of SuperNova Commencements. I am your host, Kashi Sehgal. Happy summer and congrats to the graduates. I know y'all still tune in and we're happy to have you. Students, I can't believe you're spending your summer afternoon with us and we love it. So thanks for being here, and to everybody else who's here, that's also awesome. Let's dive into our topic for today. So today we're talking about a lot of things, but today we're talking specifically about healthcare and hospitals. And so we are going to cover a career in hospital and healthcare. And we're going to talk about it with our data that we get from our partners at Steppingblocks. This is our career powered by your career powered by data segment. And Steppingblocks has 100 million people worth of data. They probably have more than that now. That's like a year's old statistic. And they analyze all kinds of trends. You know this. You should hop on their platform right after this interview and figure out what you need to be doing to make sure you're successful. Okay, so a career in hospital and healthcare, really administration, but the most common degree is in nursing. And the average age of the industry is 40. There's about 5.25 million people in the industry. And so that's at all levels. That's not just at the executive level, it's all the way to the nurses and everybody. It's 71% female. So we have to credit all the women that are helping us feel better in life, not just at hospitals, but every day. And top skills: hospital health services, health administration, and nursing. And then the skills that might make you a little bit more money: medicine, which makes sense. If you're a doctor, you're probably going to make a little bit more. Clinical research, and health informatics. If you don't know what informatics is, you should look it up. Google is your friend in this case. But informatics is really information engineering applied to the field, and this is applied to the field of healthcare. So figuring out how to engineer that specific kind of information. Okay, so across the country, most people in this industry come from Penn State, Ohio State, and Arizona State. So there's your background on hospitals and the industry. There's a lot more to dig into, so please go to Steppingblocks and check it out. Now, I'm really excited about today's conversation. We have a very special guest. I'm going to bring her on screen. Hi, Angela.
Hi, Kashi. How are you?
Doing well. So, yeah, listen, we have Angela Ammons, and she is CEO of Clinch Memorial Hospital, which is a rural hospital in South Georgia. And she is just a rock star. So we are very, very blessed to have her with us today. Angela, could you please start us off and tell us, where are you from?
Well, originally I am from Macon, Georgia. So I am a Georgia peach, born and bred all the way through. So Macon, transplanted over to the coast during my college years and raising my children over in Brunswick, Georgia. And now I'm here in South Georgia in Clinch County.
Awesome. And so, yeah, definitely a Georgia peach. And you have a kind of non-traditional education journey, although I would argue that it's pretty traditional. I think a lot of people do have disruptions and things happen. So I think it's much more common. Could you please walk us through your educational journey, just high level, and then we'll go through your career journey?
Sure. Well, I was always the non-traditional college student. I dropped out of high school when I was 15 years old. Went back a few years later and obtained a GED, and later went back to college at Coastal College of Georgia in Brunswick, obtained my associate's degree in nursing, went right to work in critical care, and then I did an online college degree with Western Governors to obtain my bachelor's, and am still pursuing my master's in nursing. I'm 6 classes away from that to get my MSN. But also, I just recently completed at Emory University in the business school there, a healthcare certificate, and that was phenomenal with all the networking and the information and people that I was exposed to. So always a student, unfortunately, but fortunately.
Well, I think that's just true in life, right? You're just formally in school, right?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you took some breaks, you stopped and started. Why did you restart? What was it about school and college and now getting your master's that was so important to you?
Well, life is hard, and there are so many things that we do to make it harder. And a lack of education is something that I don't think anyone should have as an obstacle to anything. And so, as a 15-year-old high school dropout, the jobs were very limited that I could ever qualify for. And even though I dropped out, I was hungry to learn more. And I was always an excellent student when I was in school. And I realized to set myself up for success, I had to pursue a college degree. And I love the networking and the interaction socially with other people and what you learn from that, the social skills that it sets you up for. So, there are successful people out there that have made it without college degrees, but I think that we are missing the point of being exposed to so many other things by attaining that. So I just felt it was hugely important for me, and I have not regretted it one bit from pursuing the college degrees.
Well, I think that's right. And there are some famous examples of people who haven't finished college, but that is such a small sliver of the universe. Like that is like the 1.00001% of people that actually works out for.
Yeah, and I never thought I was going to do a Tomb Raider like Angelina Jolie or Brad Pitt or any of these stars without college degrees. I was like, that's, I could do it if I tried a little bit harder, but I probably don't need to go that route. So
I would like to see you as Tomb Raider. That'd be
fun.
That would be fun.
You and I both. We could star in the movie together.
We could. We totally could. Okay, so please, Angela, walk us through now your career journey. So you picked nursing. Why nursing? And then how did you get from where you were to today? Just highlight.
Nursing was something that I felt was just a perfect fit for me and my personality. I've always had this attitude of service and doing for others. I mean, that's my love language, is gifts and just taking care of other people, probably more than I should, but I couldn't think of any other career that would be so versatile than nursing, because a lot of people think, oh, nursing is always at the bedside, but it's not. There's management, administration. Just like you said earlier, you can go into informatics, you can work from home, you can be a home health agency nurse, and there are so many other things you can do with it. But I felt it was a very solid career. Throughout history, nursing has been so needed in healthcare, so I thought it'd be very solid for me, and I felt very passionate about it. So that's why I pursued nursing school. I think it's probably one of the best decisions of my entire life, especially the skills they teach you, social skills, being exposed to different economic backgrounds. Social diversities, and it's not just about the application of medicine. We had to learn a lot of behavioral health and psychiatric aspects of taking care of our patient in the bed, but also the families that surround that. And I really do think it set me up for success for the future where I'm at now.
Yeah. So could you talk about, well, okay, let's stay on nursing for a second. So these skills that you said that you learned as a nurse, how are you applying those skills today? And maybe are they transferable in the business world? Like, how did you navigate nurse to CEO?
That's a great question, and I never really thought about it before. But I think, yes, it did. And I mean, nurses work 12-hour shifts, sometimes 16-hour shifts. We usually work for several days in a row. And I'm going to tell you that there are a lot of people who think that an MHA or an administration position means that you clock out at 4:30, you go to work at 8. And that's so far from the truth. No successful CEO or leader of an organization works 8 hours a day. It's just not in there. You're usually on call 24/7. You rarely get to take a vacation, because even when you're on vacation, you're still working to some extent because of the position you've been given. But looking back now, those 12-hour shifts, and I was just so excited to get a full paycheck, because I had been a single mom living off $400, I think, every 2 weeks for the time I was in nursing school. And so I went straight in. I worked 5 and 6 12-hour shifts from the get-go, and rarely took a break. And I was just so interested in learning everything I could, because I went straight into the ICU. And I was a critical care nurse and taking care of massive head trauma, gunshot wounds. It was just fascinating to me. So I didn't want to miss anything. But time management, and there are so many conflicts personality-wise among the nursing staff and also the patients, and exposing me to disparities and challenges of people that I did not know that was out there, and just some real world information that would prepare me, I think, for any future management or administration, learning how to navigate that, and learning sometimes not to argue with your co-staff, and sometimes silence is the best answer to anything. But truly, I really do believe my initial nursing career paved the way to where I am today. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, wow, you mentioned so many life skills there, not least of which is time management, which is kind of a big deal these days. There's so much going on. You really do have to juggle quite a bit as a nurse.
It is. And remember, there's a personal aspect to every interaction. We think it's all clinical, or this is our job. It's employer to employee, but there is a story behind every reason for anything. And as a mom, I always provided well for my children, I thought, or they never missed anything. But, I was exposed to patients who came in that day and their families had not eaten in days. Or I would notice that children were in the same clothes day in and day out when they were visiting their parents. And there were so many things that I had to address or learn how to get resources for, which whenever there is an issue with an employee, it makes me think about some of those instances and say, okay, what is the struggle here? Are they not showing up to work because there's a personal issue, a professional issue, something in their marriage? Is there a substance abuse issue? Because I was able to see so many of that as a nurse. And it helped me remember that, yes, we are here doing our job, but we have to remember the personal aspect of that. And I don't think anyone can be a success without realizing that. And that helped me out tremendously.
Yeah, I'm sure that helps you out every day, actually.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, really, context for people's behavior is so important, and they don't have to give it to you. Sometimes it's incumbent upon you to read the room, read the situation, pick up on the cues, those nonverbal cues. And that's what you're talking about. And that's a lot of what business is about. Reading, even if you're sitting in a boardroom, it's the same thing. If somebody snaps at you, is it really you, or what's going on with them? It's the same kind of thing. So empathy, context, it's all kind of wrapped up in the same
Absolutely.
idea.
Absolutely. And school did not prepare me for that. So it's the life experiences after the degree. And I tell all new nurses right out of the gate, and almost anyone that accepts a position here, I'm so proud that you got your master's in healthcare administration. I'm so proud that you got a nursing degree. It did not prepare you for the real world that you're going to be working and living in. So understand that, be prepared for that. So you need to find a mentor, you need to continue to educate yourself, and you need to learn to accept failure, because nursing school helps you pass the test, but it's not going to prepare you for that live code blue where you're trying to save someone's life. Or when you take a job and there's 3 days cash on hand, what do you do about that? school didn't teach you about that. So it's very important to understand that it is a staple foundation, but most of your skills are going to come from life experiences.
Yes. So I'm going to bookmark the comment that you just made. We are going to revisit that situation that you just mentioned.
Okay.
But I want to ask you, life presents all of us with difficult moments, difficult situations, or like challenging situations. Where do you think your drive came from to pursue these greater goals? Like, how did you continue to just keep moving forward?
Well, being on my own and homeless at times at 15, I learned very early that no one was going to give me anything, that I needed to work for everything that I had. And there are sometimes at times gifts or help, but there's always strings attached. And anyone that knows me on a personal level knows that I hate strings, and I never give a gift with strings attached. So probably from that reason, but I am from the mindset that this world owes me nothing, and if you want anything, you have to work for it. And there's a lot of employees that start and they think, I have made it. I am God's great gift to you and CMH, and because of the things that I have obtained through my degree, I am owed so much, but it's so far from the truth. And just constantly realizing that the only way that I was going to ever get beyond where I was is knowing that it was going to be a result from the direct work that I put in. That's what made me pursue more and more and more, and a dissatisfaction of being average. I don't accept average with my children and my family and relationships. And there are times for that. Like, yeah, sweatpants and a t-shirt on a Friday night with some popcorn is perfect for me. Friday nights are my favorite because it's the end of the week. But success is great. It's very pretty. It's great on the commercials. It's great in the movies, but it misses showing all the struggle and the hard work to get there. And it's a lot of sacrifice. So I believed earlier on, and I'm going to reiterate that no one owes me anything, and if I want something, I have to work for it. So that was the constant pressure. And being without at times. I mean, lack can really spur a lot of innovation and desire to change when you do without a lot of things. So probably some impoverished times in my life, that pain is still there, and I never want to revisit that. So I'm going to work as hard as I can not to make that happen. And I've worked 3 jobs before at one time. And I remember people asking me, I don't know how you do it. Well, when you have to do something, you don't think about how you do it. You just do it. And I've had that mindset. Whatever you need to get done, just do it and get it done. So a hard work ethic definitely has brought me to where I am today.
Yeah, that's for sure. And something you just said, I think is so profound. Success, when you celebrate success, you're not celebrating the process. You're celebrating the end result. And that process is so important.
Yeah. When I suffer from imposter syndrome. And so when I'm sitting here questioning myself, is this enough? Or they're going to find out that I'm a fraud. I have to sit back and look back about everything that I've accomplished and the struggles that I've overcome to say, you know what, you just need to shut your mouth. I mean, there are very few people that have overcome some of the things that you did. And I think anyone who suffers, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that's going to be on this podcast who are high performers, and you will suffer from imposter syndrome from one point of time in your life and career. You just have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, I worked when I was 15 at Shoney's. And that was before the cute Shoney's uniform. That was like the green skirt and the plaid shirt and the brown granny shoes. You know, working and going to school at 15 and earning a living that way is something to be proud of, because my own child who is 15 could not carry a Shoney's tray. Okay. So that is a huge accomplishment. So, you know, you just have to give credit where credit is due. And I encourage everyone to do that. And keeping a journal about that, those type of things is tremendously helpful.
Yeah, that's definitely resume worthy for sure.
It is. It is.
Yeah. Okay. So
I have to tell you something, Kashi. First, like week on the job, I don't know if you've ever been to Shoney's, but Shoney's had this Italian feast combo, which is like this spaghetti Parmesan, all red sauce. So I'm carrying it out, 15-year-old girl, and there's this 2 sets of cute couples all wearing white. Entire tray of food splatters all over them. That was my first week. And my manager said, "You're never going to make it. You need to go home and come back tomorrow." And on the way home, I was like, I am going to make it. And so a couple of years later, I toughed it out. But yeah, that was a really good shining moment in my career.
That is an awesome way to start the first week.
It is, yes.
Okay, so let's now transition to you as CEO.
Okay.
How did you work your way up to CEO, and how does it feel to be CEO? You talked about imposter syndrome. What does it feel like to run an organization where that responsibility sits on your shoulders? All eyes are looking at you. What does it feel like day to day?
Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I forget that I'm the CEO, and I still have to pinch myself. When you talk about a 50-year-old high school dropout being a CEO of a healthcare organization and being responsible for not only the patients but for your community employees, it's a huge responsibility. And I let the mini panic attack subside for a few minutes, and then it's surreal. It really is. And I never thought that I would be CEO this early or this young in my career. And I remember talking to a former chief nursing officer in another hospital I was working in, and I was trying to get her guidance on what career path for a master's I should take. And she said, "Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to be DON, CNO?" And I said, "No, I want to be CEO one day." And I remember her just looking just so taken aback by that. And I said, "Why not?" And that was 5-6 years ago. And here we are today. And I never thought that I would love a job so much, and am very appreciative of everything that has taught me, conflicts included. And a good friend of mine told me several years ago that there cannot be any growth, either personal or professional, without conflict. And so whenever something comes up, I'm like, okay, I'm growing from this situation or this current thing. So I just remember being a very hard worker as a direct care nurse. I think doctors would compliment me and my care, how clean my patients looked at all times. And there were nurses that were known to sit in the nurses station, and always up at the bedside, taking care of my patients. And that led to me never really officially applying for a management position, that when management positions came open, administration would come to me and said, "I want you to apply for this management job." And I remember the first time they said that, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm a direct care nurse. I can't do that." But then now I think about, I really would like to know the other side of this, and maybe I can make a difference in the management role. And so I say that to tell everyone, once you get the job, it is not over. You are on a constant interview every single day that you show up. And if you want to be promoted, and if you want to be recognized, you still have to outwork the person next to you. And remember the morals and ethics. Do 110% every single day, because you never know who's going to be watching you, and you never know the person that you're interacting with negatively will one day be someone you're interviewing for. So you always have to be on point every single day. So being open to changing up my job with Mayo Clinic, I remember I was special projects manager, and they wanted me to take over being behavioral health manager, which is a huge challenge for me. And a lot of people do not like behavioral health, but eventually you get used to it because you realize that you have somebody like that. I mean, every time you go to Christmas at grandma's, someone pops up like that right at the table. You've been dealing with it all your life. But someone watched me work, and someone went on a mission trip with me, and they would ask me questions about some issues that was going on at their healthcare facility, and I would answer. And all of that work led to a member of the board reaching out and said, "We would love for you to come and interview a CEO of our hospital." And I said, "I really appreciate that. I'm very flattered. I'm not quite sure how you got my name or number, but I'm a nurse manager. I'm a nurse. I've never been a CEO." And they said, "We know. We heard about your leadership style and your skills, and we want you to come and interview with us." And so I wore my best suit, and here we are today. They were interviewing several candidates, and for whatever reason, I was the one chosen, and I'm very grateful for that. But I don't think that I would be here if I was satisfied with doing the least in my job. I do believe it's a history of showing up first, doing the best job that I possibly can, and just constantly working, trying to outwork the next person that brought me to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So
you are, from what I have learned, an out-of-the-box thinker. Has that always come naturally to you, or is that a skill that you have had to develop over time? And how, if so, how did you hone it?
I think it's a skill that has to be developed if you're trying to survive. So if you look at homeless populations on the streets, there's a lot of innovation there, a lot of innovation. There's a lot of ingenious ideas on how to feed yourself on a daily basis, how to survive that life's trauma, how to get health care when you don't have insurance. And so I think as being a survivor for so many years of my life, you have to think outside the box. You can't do the status quo, because the status quo is not working for you. When you are living off the grid, and you may be a street rat for a few years and so forth. So I think that thinking outside the box, I just learned that very early on, that you have to be different. But I was also recognized as being different. I had a hard childhood growing up as being the only Asian or half Asian person in the school for years. And so I was ostracized for looking and being different. So I was already used to being different. I knew that that could help you in some instances, but this hospital has struggled for years doing the same thing that the previous person did before and doing what has always been done. And I realized that you cannot do the same thing that you did before if we were to succeed. There are so many struggling hospitals out there who are trying to do what everybody else does, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work. We are also different in the demographics where we live and the patient population that we serve and what we do well, that we have to think outside of the box to survive. And just like you, Kashi, you think outside the box. I think any famous person who has been innovative or has great ideas, they just didn't go with what everybody else was doing. And so you have to take a step outside of the comfort zone. And I have made some huge mistakes. I have thought of projects that I thought was going to be hugely successful, and I fell right on my face when it failed. But guess what? You have to embrace the failures. I don't know how many times Edison had a failure before he made the light bulb work. I think it was almost 1,000 times maybe. And if he had quit with the first failure, where would we be now? Yeah. So in your professional career, whoever is listening, you have to remember, do not beat yourself up so much that you don't want to try something else again when it fails. You just got to pick yourself up and try again.
Yeah, no, that's such a great piece of advice, or several pieces of advice. You mentioned thinking outside the box, and as that relates to rural hospitals, what would you say is the biggest issue facing a rural hospital today, or maybe like top 3 issues?
Legislation, and navigating the payment or payer sources and trying to get the biggest reimbursement. Low census in our community, because if a hospital doesn't have a thriving census or volume within the community, they're not going to come to the hospital. And just trying to keep up with pandemics that will cost you tons of money. But it's just so many different things, Kashi. I wish I could put a top 3. But it just seems like every day I walk in here and there's something that has just trumped what I thought was number 1. But increasing costs, oh, and gosh, the constant turnover of staff has got to be one of the biggest challenges for any healthcare system right now, whether it's a large tertiary facility or a rural hospital. We cannot get people to stay. And that is just so defeating to us when we make these investments in recruiting and onboarding, and then staff, for whatever reason, within 6 months or a year, well, I think I want to try something different. And I strongly encourage anyone. You're never going to get grounded until you're there a year. You're not going to be proficient until 2 years. You're not going to become a professional in it for 3 years. And the average cost for a facility whenever an RN leaves is $51,000. $51,000. So you think about nurses leaving and maybe 5 or 6 a year. and how that costs us in recruitment fees and having to look for agency. So staffing recently this past year has been a huge struggle for us, especially with the COVID pandemic, because there's a lot of nurses who quit, who chose not to nurse anymore, who chooses not to serve at the bedside. They're looking for other career paths because it just hit them so hard. And then there's a struggle of these large bonuses that are being offered by these very wealthy health systems that we can't compete with. So we are definitely challenged in trying to find loyal staffing right now. And that's even for physicians and administrative positions. It's very, very challenging for us.
Interesting. So how did you work through the biggest healthcare crisis in the last couple of years? I mean, what was it like to be running this hospital during COVID?
Like a carnival. It was like a carnival game, where you have that game with a gun that knocks over the doll and they bounce right back up. I'm like,
they don't stay down.
I'm like, oh, my entire life has been preparing me for this moment. Is innovation, flexing, survival.
Yeah, like, did you use like personal life skills in that moment? Like, did it prepare you for this crazy year?
Oh, yeah, it did. For instance, we could not get PPE immediately, and we were running out of masks for a respiratory disease that was killing people. You know what? I said, no, we're not going to depend on that. Let's call the people in the community. Let's go and get fabric at Hobby Lobby, and let's ask these people who are not working, who are sitting at home, to sew masks for us. And we developed a process where we were not waiting on those cloth masks or fabric masks from manufacturers in China. And we had church socials at home and these little ladies and men sewing these masks for us. And a lot of people were dead in the water who I spoke with at CEOs were like, well, we're just waiting on our supply to get here. So we're telling our staff just to reuse. I'm like, no, there are people that sew. You're in rural Georgia. Get them to sew some masks for you. So we had to think outside of the box for that. We had our CNO whose husband worked with plexiglass, and he was able to design and build an intubation box for us that would protect our staff from getting the respiratory splay, or this, I guess that's a little term for nursing, but any of the sputum or anything going back when you intubate somebody so that we wouldn't be exposed. So we go in through this plexiglass box that completely protects us from the patient, which all that's innovation. We even thought about buying 3D printers for some of our supplies. We had to set up a critical care unit when we could not get patients out. And that has never been a problem for us, Kashi. We pick up the phone. If someone was very sick or needed critical care, we could get them out within an hour. There were days that we called hospitals within 5 states, day after day after day, in 5 states, and could not get a patient out. So my little acute care hospital had to convert into a critical care hospital. And we had to rush, put policies and procedures down, protocols, train our physicians and staff within a matter of days. And I don't think that my survival mentality or mode of the first few years of my life did not contribute to that, because we had to think outside the box constantly and sharing resources with other CEOs, because when you're growing up and you don't have a lot, you learn to share. So I would pick up the phone and call CEOs. What do you have the most of? Can I exchange this for you? Can I exchange this not a sick patient with you? And we can go vice versa. So we did that with some hospitals. So the pandemic definitely kept us on our toes and is still keeping us on our toes to this day.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're so grateful that you guys are thinking outside the box and have done things differently. We need more thinkers like you, especially in the healthcare system. So I hope you have all kinds of success and even more. We have a lot of student questions coming in, so I want to transition to their questions, even though I have quite a bit more. Okay. So Seema wants to know, what would you have done differently if you could? I guess if you could do it over.
Well, in my childhood or now as...
She did not specify. So
okay.
Maybe just,
If I had done things differently, I would have been a lot more focused on school earlier on, and I would have went done everything I could to finish my high school and go right into my college degree in my career, because it was so hard balancing being a single mother and life with college. And I feel like I did not, or was not able to thoroughly enjoy college as it should be enjoyed. It's just such a struggle to have to do both. So that's what I would have done differently. And with that, but my career choices, from being a nurse to here, I don't know that I would have done anything much differently than I have.
Okay, so Maribel wants to know, what skill did you develop over your career that you are surprised by?
That I'm surprised by. There are two skills, and one is a soft skill, and I'm going to talk about develop the skill of early forgiveness, being quick to forgive. I have a quick temper, and I think I've learned to rein that in over the last few years, but I'm surprised at how easy it is for me to forgive, when for several years it wasn't. But I think because I needed forgiveness for so many things, that I learned to develop that. But any professional, anybody in this world, you've got to learn to forgive others quickly so that you can mend those fences, get back to work, get back to your relationships, whatever you have to do, and to move on so that you can free the other person who's asking for that forgiveness, to free that burden. And the survival outside the box, Kashi, you talked about, I am surprised at how quickly we just navigated this pandemic and how we jumped to solve issues. And this team has grown so much in the last 4 years that I've been here. And it seems now where people were hesitant to jump in and give an idea, we're all jumping in. Let's do this. Let's try this. So that skill of survival is something I'm still surprised at.
Yeah, well, you've been doing it your whole life. So,
yes. Still takes me by surprise.
So Lucy wants to know, what is one of the toughest moments you've had at work outside of the Shoney's incident?
That was a tough moment. No, learning that this job is not about me. It's about the community that I want to serve and these employees. So when there are attacks against me personally, I cannot take it personally. And I have to remember the big picture. So I'm going to give you an example, because all of you are going to work with some very difficult people. And I came in contact with a physician in the community who had led a culture of bullying or belittling to some extent. And I don't think I'm a hugely large person at all, but I remember walking into a meeting and he says in front of everybody, med staff, and that's a team of physicians and administration, "Mrs. Ammons, have you lost any weight? Because it doesn't look like it." So it was a challenge for me, and he wanted to see me crumple, and I just kept a straight face. And, I would get a phone call from certain occasions from him, and he would say, "Hey, I got a question for you." And I would say, "Yes, sir. Are you still fat?" And he would laugh and hang with the phone. And we would sit in a performance improvement meeting or a CQI meeting, and he would say in front of everybody, "I think our next performance improvement is to reduce Mrs. Ammons' BMI, because she is not overweight, she's morbidly obese, and we need to do something about it." And so I would sit there and I would say, "You're very funny," because I knew that there was a time to fight a battle, and in front of everybody, that was not that time. He was trying to ruffle my feathers, and that I could get up and walk away and already have a lawsuit on my hands, but there was a job that needed to be done. So I needed to put on my shield that I had tried to perfect over all the years of my life and just deal with it. And later, at a more appropriate time, I addressed it very professionally. I brought up a lawsuit in the middle of med staff about physicians who were being sued along with hospitals for lateral violence and harassment. And I told all the med staff at that point there would be zero tolerance for that, and that everyone would be required additional training. And this person happened to step down from CMO after the end of the meeting, but no more of that. So that probably those days, and especially when you're battling insecurity about whether or not you're doing a good job, and if you are 5 or 10 pounds overweight, you're like, "Gosh, how many more days do I have to wear this pair of Spanx?" But then to have somebody bringing that up in a professional setting was shocking. I'm like, this is not what I'm here for. I'm here to save a hospital. I'm not here to be belittled. So those were probably the hardest days I've had to overcome, or some of the hardest days. And you will have those days. And I just want you to assess the situation and decide whether or not you want to fight that battle that day, and handle it in a professional level. So yeah, it hasn't been a bed of roses since I've been here.
Yeah, and to highlight what you just said, it's not like Angela wasn't affected by what this dude said to her. She just made a decision in that moment on how to respond. And we all have choices that we can make every day in every situation. She chose how to react, and we can all do that. You can't control someone else, but you can definitely control yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Very, like, I don't even know what to say to that, but that is.
And I've grown from that. Like when I first started here, I remember being in meetings and like rolling my eyes and going, did I roll my eyes at this response? Or if I didn't like what a board member or somebody was saying, I would start writing really hard and clenching my teeth. And then I listened. I had very teachable moments, and I remained open to constructive criticism. And I would have mentors that pull me to the side and say, Angela, I don't think you notice this, but you're rolling your eyes. And you are very upset, vividly upset about this. So just control your emotions. You don't need to let people see that. So I've learned from trial and error and those things. I've learned a lot in these last 4 years, and hopefully we'll just get better and better at that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And trying not to say the S word so much. I get really upset. Shouldn't say those things at work, but sometimes they fly out.
Sometimes it's just not possible not to.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about something good. Curtis wants to know, what is your favorite part of your job?
Interacting with my staff every day. This is my family. It really is. It's another part of my family, but we're here more with each other than we are with our loved ones at home. So I have to honestly say, I thoroughly enjoy working with every single person on this team. The different personalities, the things that we pick up and learn from each other. And yes, there are some things that rub us wrong at times, but I would not change anyone. It's like a perpetual viewing of The Office. If any of you guys love that TV show, it's just like we laugh, we cry, we support each other, but that is what I love the most. The second thing that I really love about my job, and I know you, Curtis, you didn't ask for that, but the growth that I've seen in everyone since I've been here. That's what I love, is that we're failing and then we're picking ourselves up and then we're growing and we're changing. And that's what I really like seeing. So.
And the fact that you've been a part of that growth.
So. Well, they make me look good every single day, Kashi. They do.
Well, you know, it also takes a good leader, strong leader. So it flows in both directions. Julian wants to know, how do you stay motivated to keep fighting for everything, including fighting on behalf of patients and the community? It's very hard. There are days where you leave in tears, and I have driven home crying about certain situations, because some days it seems like you can never do enough to please everyone, and you're never going to please everyone. You know, we received some awards and accolades, and literally in the next few days, there was like this closed Facebook group in the community that wanted me removed from CEO because I had to terminate someone who had been here for a very long time. But I don't terminate people for invalid reasons. And, you know, it was just very hard for people to say, on one hand, congratulations, and the next day they're coming with pitchforks and torches to have me removed during the board meeting, or they don't understand that this step I'm making is for a bigger picture. So it is very hard to stay motivated for those things. But when I see other CEOs doing well, it motivates me. When I get a letter from a patient and we've made a significant difference, who came here on a ventilator and was trached and was able to literally walk out of the building, when 4 years ago we had a census of 2 patients a day, that keeps me motivated. And seeing the livelihoods
of the employees, 150 plus employees that we now employ, motivates me to not be satisfied in anything that we do, just to constantly be better. And there are bad days. There are some days I just want to go home and put on my pajamas and eat all the ice cream I can get and just feel sorry for myself. And it's okay to have those moments, but I literally time myself on my pity party, and I set the clock like you have 30 minutes to be as pitying to yourself as possible. And when that alarm goes off, I say it's done. And I literally have to do that. And you will have to do that too, because the negative thoughts you feed yourself will just carry over. So looking at the success, and if you guys could see my office, there's a whiteboard of a wish list and things that need to be done. But this is my second whiteboard. The first one had almost everything accomplished. And I still have a photo of that. And I pull it out and say, okay, when you're feeling negative or you need some motivation, think about the 24 things you accomplished in the first 2 years you were here. So that's how I stay motivated, with small pity parties of ice cream.
That's ice cream makes everything go down better.
It does. It does. Unless you're lactose intolerant, and it's not.
They make ice cream for that too. I have to just point out for people who don't know, well, maybe you can point this out. When you started at Clinch Memorial Hospital, could you talk about where the hospital was when you started and now where it is? I mean, you have really helped and grown this hospital into a community resource that is so vital and important. And I want people to understand how hard that is. Could you just talk about that briefly?
Yes, ma'am. Well, when I first started here, we had 3 days cash on hand. And for any business to have 3 days cash on hand, it's just implorable and made me very nervous. Facility issues that were going to take thousands of dollars to fix. We had an average daily census of, I believe, 2.3 patients. And I had 90 employees who wanted to know why they hadn't gotten a raise in 3 years. And everyone wanted me to change and save the hospital, or to save the hospital, as long as it personally did not affect them. And we all know that change is not possible without it affecting someone. So it was bad. The culture was bad. There was just layer upon layer upon layer of messes that had to be cleared out. And it wasn't anything extraordinary. There are things that I wanted to implement that were basic CMS and federal guidelines that this hospital had never even heard of. And I said, guys, I'm not asking you for the moon. This is basic things that we should already be doing. But just to put the culture in perspective, I was being walked around and introduced to staff on my first day by the interim CEO, and there was an employee who literally refused to shake my hand or be introduced to me. And I was the new CEO of the hospital. Literally said, nope, don't want to meet her right now. Within my first week, I would go around, I would try to talk to some of the nurses because I am a nurse, and I would say, hello, how are you doing today? How was your day? And they would not answer me until I literally had to tap on the counter and say, did you not hear me talking to you? I'm like, oh yeah, I heard you. That was the culture. So when you think about all these things that need to be changed, these were the employees that I had to get to motivate to change so that we can all be on the same wavelength. But we were dying. I think my second board meeting was our financial auditors coming in to tell us that due to our multi-year $1 million losses that we were going to face imminent closure if we didn't do something different. So I was like, oh my God, I've been hired to be the scapegoat of the closure of this hospital. My professional career is over. What are we going to do? But that led me to also on my first day, picking up the phone and calling my mentor, who was the CEO of Miller County Hospital, and saying, just as boldly and transparent as I could possibly be, Robin, you don't know me. This is my first day as a CEO on the job in this rural hospital. I've researched you a lot and you are a huge success. Will you agree to be my mentor? And she agreed, and I do believe it was all divine intervention. And here we are 4 years later, where we have been full in our bed census. We've grown from 90 employees to over 150. We have been able to recruit a physician where we didn't have a physician, and a mid-level. And not only open a family practice, we're slated to open a second clinic farther in town. Our team helped us to win CEO of the Year, Hospital of the Year awards. I'm on this fabulous talk today with Kashi. We were featured in Time magazine. what rural hospital in Georgia do you know that's been in Time magazine? And it was all a result of doing something different, rolling up our sleeves. It was not easy. It was hard work, and not giving up when we thought we were going to give up or we needed to, not taking hits from people who wanted to abuse us with their words or try to run us out of town, because we realized we had to keep the bigger picture here. But here we are. And I have been able to network some phenomenal people, been asked to speak at several conferences to share our story, and there has been growth within our own management team doing that as well. We are working on all these other projects. We got congressional recognition on C-SPAN from a congressman for the work that we had done. Even though he said my name wrong, it's perfectly fine. He said Clinch Memorial. But all that was not a result of clocking in at 8 and clocking out at 4:30 and being satisfied with just the basics. It was a result of research, of collaboration, of networking, and I hate networking. I hate it. I'm an introvert. There's nothing more than I like to do is stay at home. I want you to invite me to something, but I'm not necessarily going to show up. I just want the invitation. But I've learned how to get out of my comfort zone with that. And I'll be the first one there, and I'll start conversations and being bold and putting yourself out there and asking for help when you need it, not pretending you know everything. It led me to that phone call with Robin. And I wasn't the first hospital that called her. She had received multiple phone calls and requests for help. But she heard something in my voice that she decided to act on that. But that's where we are. We still are facing challenges, but I'm hoping that we're still going to be on the upward growth of things. And even though no rural hospital is out of the woods yet, or will ever be out of the woods, I'm hoping that we can stay a lot farther above the red line than we ever have before.
Yeah, it's incredible what you've done with the hospital and the team has done and the team that you've built. So kudos to all of you. What would you say is your purpose, Angela?
To serve. To serve. I'm big in missions, and I used to feel really bad that I had not been back to Honduras, which is a passion of mine, in 4 years. But then I believe that God spoke to me and said, don't you realize that what your work is doing right now is your mission? So every day I get to come in, I get to serve my employees, my patients, the people in the community. So if I could not be in the position I am to serve, I wouldn't do it. And sometimes people say, would you we Downton Abbey fan, love Downton Abbey. And my friend's like, oh, I could have someone help me dress every evening. And they said, which would you rather be? And I really, literally would want to be the servant, because that's where I get most of the satisfaction. I'm very uncomfortable being served. So that is definitely where I am today and where I always want to be, on that end of it.
Yeah, that's lovely. Okay, a few more student questions and then we'll wrap it up.
All right.
So I think, what is your definition of success?
Gosh, because I'm one of those people who wants more and more and more. I guess success to me is that my dreams are reality. And it's not the monetary things. It's not that all. Am I happy? Am I satisfied in the work that I'm doing? Do I have friends? Do I have good relationships within my family? Is there anything that's broken that I need to fix? So to me, that's my sign of a success. Because literally, when I was raising, I wanted to be a stay-at-home wife and mother. I never got to have that opportunity, but I thought that was the ultimate career goal for me. And I guess I want that because I never got to stay in the home. But to me, that would have been the ultimate success, is to be able to be there for my kids when they got the school bus, to make these fabulous meals, to be president of the PTA. That would have been a huge success for me. So I say success is when you're truly happy in what you're doing and you're satisfied with that.
Love that. Victor wants to know, what do you do for downtime? Or do you have downtime? How do you balance everything?
I do. It's very hard. It's very hard for personal relationships. And I have to be very clear on those expectations from the get-go that I love you guys, but this is a time in my life where I have to dedicate this stuff. But I try to keep in touch with people through letters. And I love snail mail. I love a handwritten note, and I love receiving those notes. So I try to keep in touch with all my friends and family through that aspect. Facebook and Zoom is a great way to connect with people. But when you're in the type of positions that we are, you're going to have to learn to say no, that you can't say yes to every birthday party invitation, to every get together, to every happy hour. You are going to have to say no, because you're going to go insane if you say yes to everything. So when I learned the power of that and learned how to use no, it was so much better for me, because I was so stressed out because I thought I had to go to everything, and I didn't. So I love to read. I'm a voracious reader. There's stacks of books all over my house in every room, and I've converted my china cabinet into a library case. So I love to read, whether it's and listen to audibles back and forth to work. I love to travel. So if I can do a mini vacation of 3 or 4 days away where I'm not too far away from work, I like that, because the pandemic did show me that tomorrows are not promised. And there are so many people who have plans for the future who never got to do that. So I made it a point to put some things on my schedule that I put off, like seeing the Grand Canyon this year. I was able to do that, and making time to do those type of things. But I love cooking, spending time with my dog and my kids. But I'm a very low maintenance kind of person when it comes to those type of things. I could stay at home for days and be perfectly happy, not go anywhere. But learning to say no has been my biggest downtime favorite thing to do, so that you can make time for yourself. But if any of you guys have some great books that you want to recommend to me, I will take that advice and go to Books A Million, which is my happy place.
Yeah, support your local bookstore.
Yes.
And yeah, I definitely learned that I was very happy to be at home for stretches of time with a book and not doing anything else for the pandemic. So, didn't need all the events.
No, you didn't. No, perfectly happy.
Even as an extrovert, maybe I'm more of an introvert than I realize. I don't even know. Okay, last question. And I also want the answer to this question. So, Sarah, thank you for asking this question. She says, I hope you're writing a book. What would the title be?
Angela's Ashes. No, that's already taken. No idea. I thought about writing a book. I think I am a good writer. I have moved people to tears. No, I'm just kidding. But I think there is a story to be told, and I really don't know what the title would be yet. I don't know who to give credit to, or exactly what the word is that needs to be on that book. But I do envision that there is a book in the works. I really do. From whether it's the struggles of the childhood to some of the funny things that happen in healthcare. Maybe you could send me a title and then I could use it. But I don't know the title yet. But there is one in the works. Definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We might have to brainstorm some titles, because that needs to come out sooner rather than later. All right. Well, y'all, that is our show for today. And we are very, very grateful to Angela for spending her time with us. She is very busy, as you can tell. There's lots going on in her days. Make sure that you are signed up for our mailing list. Please go to supernovacommence.com, sign up. And we send you all kinds of cool things by email only. So make sure you are on that list. Grant opportunities, scholarship opportunities, cool internships, all kinds of things are coming your way. We have our next show coming up, which is with Alveda Thomas. She is president of Southern Crescent Technical College. And so that is going to be a lot of fun. Alveda's great. Angela, thank you again. Do you have any closing thoughts for our students?
I just wish you guys all the best of luck. I know you're going to do great things. And I just thank you so much for the questions and for the time here to share my story. And I cannot wait to hear about all the great things you're going to do.
Well, I can't wait either. So please share those comments and experiences with us. Drop it in the comments. And Have a great week. Enjoy the summer. If y'all are in class, best of luck to you for summer school. Remember, it's a blessing to be a blessing. So be kind to people today as you go through your day, and stay safe and healthy. We'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.
Bye.